The war came to Vela Station not with warning sirens, but with fire. At first, the distant void looked beautiful. Sparks of crimson flared against the velvet dark, like stars being born. But as the debris drifted closer, everyone on the command deck realized what those sparks really were: wrecks of ships, human ships, broken and burning. The Krith Dominion was here. The iron wind shuddered as a shockwave slammed into its hull. Commander Elias Kale held his balance against the railing, jaw tight, while the stars outside lit up with devastation. Their allies, frigates, cruisers, even a carrier, were being torn apart in elegant silence, their last screams lost in the vacuum. The Krith didn't just fight, they harvested. Every ship they crippled was dragged into the dark by grappling beams, stripped of survivors, turned into fuel for their living machines. Multiple signatures incoming, reported Ensign Drew, sweat slicking his brow. His voice cracked, boyish fear beneath military words. 80 Dominion vessels. Our fleet's already halved. The bridge lights dimmed. Systems failed and rebooted under stress. Still, the Iron Wind fought on. A corvette wasn't built for grand victories. It was built for speed, teeth bared, darting in and out like a wolf snapping at a giant's heels. "Bring us around the station's spine," Elias ordered. His voice was sharp, every syllable cutting through fear. "We'll shield behind its mass. Use it as cover." Metal groaned as the ship banked. Through the viewing ports, Vela Station loomed, a spindly fortress wrapped around a mining rock, once a hub for ore shipments, now little more than a target. Its defense batteries spat blue fire, tearing chunks from Dominion fighters, but for every one destroyed, 2 more appeared. On the right side of the bridge, Lieutenant Sarah Vera never looked up. Her gloved hands danced across the tactical screen, calculating firing angles, mapping enemy maneuvers with precision so sharp it almost felt inhuman. Her face, as always, was hidden behind the black steel mask. Its edges caught the red glow of alarms, cold and unreadable. To the crew, she was a mystery wrapped in silence. To Elias, she was the reason they'd survived this long. "Target their skirmish line," she said. Her voice filtered through the mask's modulator, calm, metallic, unshaken. "If we breach here," she tapped a cluster of Dominion ships, "their wing will falter. It will buy us seconds. Seconds!" In a battle like this, seconds were priceless. Elias gave the order. The corvette's thrusters flared, engines shrieking. They dove straight at the Dominion wedge. Plasma fire streaked past, close enough to burn the hull plating, but Sarah's calculations were flawless. Every vector she plotted put them just outside the kill zone. Then the Iron Wind spat fury. Its railguns fired, rapid slugs carving through a Dominion cutter's spine. A missile followed, detonating in the heart of a drone carrier. Explosions rippled outward, breaking the formation exactly where Sarah predicted. The crew erupted in cheers. They'd drawn blood, but Elias didn't smile. His eyes fixed on the shadow stretching across the stars. The Krith mothership was emerging from warp. The vessel was a monstrosity, kilometers long, its hull a living thing of black metal and pulsing red veins. Spines bristled with weapons that could gut an entire fleet. Its arrival silenced every human voice on the comms. Hope drained from the battlefield like air from a ruptured hull. "Commander," Drew whispered. "What do we do against that?" Elias clenched his jaw, staring into the abyss. He'd seen Dominion motherships before. Entire colonies had burned under their guns. But this one was different. It wasn't just here to destroy. It was here to end. For a heartbeat, doubt clawed at him. The human fleet was scattered, morale shattered. Humanity wasn't ready for this war. They were clever, stubborn, but the Krith were endless, ruthless, perfect predators. The Iron Wind rattled as the mothership's first barrage cut through space. Beams of plasma carved the station in half, reducing its proud towers to molten slag. Thousands died in an instant. The shockwave slammed into their shields, setting panels sparking. "We can't outgun it," Elias muttered. He knew it. The crew knew it. Even Sarah must have known it. And then, her masked face turned toward him. Calm, steady, almost serene amid the chaos. "I have a plan," she said. Her words cut through the bridge noise. Sharp as a blade, Elias looked at her, brow furrowed. The Krith mothership filled the stars behind her, a god of war descending. He wanted to demand more, to ask why she was never afraid, why she always hid behind the cold mask. But he didn't. Because right now, humanity's survival might rest on whatever secret was locked behind it. Silence hung on the Iron Wind's bridge for less than a heartbeat after Sarah's words. Then the crew erupted, half disbelief, half desperate hope. "A plan?" Drew barked, his voice strained. "Lieutenant, that's not a ship. That's a planet with engines." Quiet," Elias snapped. He didn't raise his voice often, but when he did, the deck froze. He looked at Sarah. "Show me." Her fingers flew across the console. Holograms bloomed in the air, blue light cutting through the red of emergency alarms. Schematics of the Krith mothership unfolded like the anatomy of a beast. She had mapped weaknesses, oscillations in its shield harmonics, the precise rhythm of its spinal cannon's recharge cycles. Elias studied the display, his mind racing. The maneuver was madness, flying into the mothership's firing arc, hugging its hull so close that their corvette would practically scrape its armor, then triggering torpedoes in the exact moment its shields cycled. One miscalculation, and they'd be slag before even getting close. "Suicide," muttered Chief Engineer Ryn. "Victory," Sarah corrected softly, her modulated voice calm. "For a few seconds, their vision will blur. Long enough to blind a giant. Long enough to remind them humans don't kneel." The words struck the crew harder than any speech Elias had ever given. This wasn't reckless courage. It was precise defiance. Elias leaned over the console, his reflection pale in her mask. "You're certain this works?" "Yes." She didn't hesitate. "I've calculated every angle." He saw no doubt in her. And strangely, no fear. Just cold, focused certainty. "Then plot it," he ordered. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. None questioned further. They had no choice. The Iron Wind surged forward. Engines screamed, shields strained, the hull rattled as though the ship itself feared what was coming. The Dominion ships swarmed, their plasma trails weaving a net of fire. Sarah's voice guided every movement, each order timed to the fraction of a second. "Pitch 2 degrees starboard, now." "Hold velocity! Wait! Drop decoys! Release! Bank left!" They obeyed without thinking. And impossibly every shot missed. The corvette wove between beams as if dancing. Elias's knuckles whitened on the railing, but Sarah's hands never faltered. Then came the wall of death, the mothership's spinal cannons charging, light swelling at their tips like the eyes of gods about to open. The crew held their breath. "Dive now!" Sarah commanded. The Iron Wind plunged, engines roaring, skimming so close to the mothership's surface that its hull loomed like an endless mountain of black iron and living veins. The void around them glowed as the cannons unleashed, tearing past where they had been a split second earlier. Sparks rained inside the bridge. Panels blew. A fire broke out near navigation, quickly doused. No one screamed. They were too busy surviving. "Mark the cycle." "Ready torpedoes," Sarah said. "On your word," Elias replied. 3, 2, 1. The corvette's torpedo bays spat fire. Warheads slammed into the mothership's weapon array precisely as its shields flickered between cycles. The explosion tore across its flank, shredding a third of its batteries in one brilliant chain reaction. For the first time in recorded history, a human corvette crippled a Krith mothership. The Dominion fleet faltered, pulling back to protect their wounded giant. The battle shifted. Human ships scattered across the system found courage again, regrouping around the impossible strike. They surged forward, rallying to finish what moments ago had been certain defeat. On the Iron Wind, cheers erupted, deafening and wild. Crew members clapped each other on the shoulders, laughing through tears. Against all odds, they had lived. Elias allowed himself a small grin before turning to Sarah. She stood perfectly still at her console. Mask glinting, silent while chaos swirled around her, he stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Why the mask, Lieutenant? You've just saved humanity's fleet. You've earned the right to show who you are." For a long moment she didn't respond. Then her head tilted slightly toward him, as though weighing whether to speak. The sound that came was not the confident steel the others heard, but something smaller, almost fragile. "Because you'd stop protecting me." Elias froze. Her words were soft, meant only for him, but they carved deeper than any blade. Protecting her? Why would he ever stop? What could possibly be behind that mask? Before he could speak again, alarms shrieked. The Dominion wasn't retreating, only regrouping. Battle wasn't over. There was no time for questions. But as Elias turned back to the fight, her words echoed in his mind like a seed of unease. What did she fear he would see? What truth was hidden behind that mask, so dangerous it might break everything? The battle in orbit stretched into hours, not minutes. Human ships, battered and burning, clung together around the Iron Wind's daring strike. They fought like a cornered pack, every captain drawing courage from the impossible maneuver Syrah had orchestrated. The Dominion's numbers still dwarfed theirs, but hesitation had seeped into the alien swarm. For the first time, the hunters had been wounded. Elias Kyle barely left the bridge. Sweat streaked down his neck as he barked orders, keeping what was left of the fleet from splintering. Vela Station was already gone, its twisted husk a graveyard orbiting the mining rock. Civilians had been slaughtered or taken. Everyone knew what happened to the taken. But Syrah remained a fixed point in the chaos. She plotted vector shifts, predicted Dominion feints, and every time she spoke, the crew obeyed instantly. She had become the ship's heartbeat, and yet shadows whispered around her. In the mess hall, crew spoke when they thought no officers could hear. "She doesn't sleep. I've checked logs. She's on duty 20 hours a day. You ever notice how she knows Krith movements before they happen?" "She's not one of us." "She can't be." Rumors spread like infection. Was she augmented? Was she a spy? Some even claimed the mask wasn't hiding her face, but her thoughts, that maybe the Dominion could control her without it. Elias ignored the talk at first. Soldiers always needed someone to blame. But when the whispers turned into hesitation, gunners doubting her vectors, pilots flinching at her commands, he knew he had to cut the infection out before it killed them. Then the intercepted transmission came. The Dominion's code was hard to crack, layered in shifting frequencies and alien syntax, but human ingenuity was sharper than any machine. Signals intelligence finally broke a fragment, and Elias listened in grim silence as alien voices slithered through the comms. "Target Vera. Priority Alpha. Retrieval essential. Fleet will not withdraw until objective secured." They weren't here to annihilate humanity. They were here to take her. When Elias confronted Sarah in the tactical chamber, the blue holograms of the fleet painted her mask in cold light. She didn't look at him as he replayed the transmission. "They're calling you by name," he said, voice low. "Not the ship." "Not me. You. Care to explain?" For the first time since he'd met her, she froze. No calculations, no swift answer. Just silence. Finally, her modulated voice spoke, quieter than he'd ever heard it. "Because I am the reason they came here." His pulse hammered. "What does that mean?" "Who are you, Lieutenant?" Her hands curled into fists at her sides. The mask tilted down, shadowing her features. "If I tell you, you won't look at me the same way. You'll doubt me. And we can't afford that. Not now." He wanted to press, to demand the truth. But alarms blared, pulling them both back to reality. The Dominion had launched a fresh wave. The conversation was swallowed by duty. Back on the bridge, the crew fought on, unaware of the storm beneath the surface. Elias gave commands with fire in his veins, but his eyes kept drifting towards Sarah. She was perfect in battle, every move flawless, but now every perfection felt unnatural. That night, or what passed for night in the endless glow of emergency lamps, Elias couldn't sleep. He reviewed old fleet files, tracing every record of Lieutenant Sarah Vera. And that was the problem. There wasn't much to trace. Service history began only 3 years ago, her background redacted, her transfer orders stamped directly by High Command. No academy records, no family, nothing before the war. A ghost dropped into their ranks. The crew didn't need to know the details of the intercepted transmission. Elias kept it sealed, but the whispers grew anyway, fueled by instinct. Soldiers smelled secrets like predators smelled blood. Syrah never reacted. She kept her mask on, her calm voice steady, her hands guiding them through battles that should have killed them. If the crew doubted, she ignored it. If they glared, she never flinched. But Elias noticed the small things. How her shoulders tensed when he stood too close. How she avoided mirrors in the corridor. How, once, when her mask flickered with static from a power surge, she had grabbed at it in a panic so sharp it bordered on fear. He caught her alone after a skirmish, when the adrenaline had drained from the crew and silence pressed against the hull. "You've saved more lives than anyone in this war," he said, keeping his voice steady. "But I need to know what the hell we're protecting. Because it's not just humanity they're after, it's you." Her mask turned toward him, the faint glow of her visor reflecting his face. The filtered voice was softer than before. "If I tell you, you'll wish I hadn't." Elias didn't back down. "I don't care what you are. As long as you're fighting for us, you're one of us." For the first time, he thought he heard her breath hitch behind the mask, a pause too human to be coincidence. Then she walked away, leaving only 6 words in the air, heavy as gravity. "They'll never stop until I'm dead." The next assault came without pause. The Dominion had learned from their hesitation. Now they came like a tide, relentless, coordinated, leaving no gaps. The human fleet scrambled to hold the line above the fractured mining world. Every ship stretched beyond limits. The iron wind was running hot, shields flickering, hull plating scorched black. Elias barked orders while his crew worked with the speed of desperation. Even Sarah's calculations were barely enough to keep them alive. Then the boarding alarm screamed. Dominion cutters pierced their defenses, attaching like leeches. Bulkheads shook as alien claws tore through metal. The crew armed themselves, rifles pulled from lockers, faces pale but determined. For the first time, the battle came inside. Elias led the counterstrike through smoke-choked corridors, plasma bolts sparking against walls. The Krith soldiers weren't human. They were tall, bone-plated, their faces hidden behind insectoid masks. They moved with terrifying coordination, each step in unison, and at the center of it, Sarah fought like fire given form. Her precision at the console carried into combat. She didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, her rifle snapping with perfect accuracy. But even as she fought, Elias noticed something. The Krith didn't fire at her like they did the others. They aimed to capture. One soldier lunged at her with a binding claw. She turned too fast, too fluid for any human. Her strike was surgical, breaking its spine in a motion that looked almost rehearsed. And for a fraction of a second, Elias saw her mask's visor flare, not from reflection but from her eyes beneath, glowing faintly violet. The Dominion soldier hissed one word before it died. Elias didn't understand the tongue, but Sarah did. He saw the way she froze, shoulders rigid, before driving her blade home. When the corridors were clear and the boarding party broken, Elias pulled her into the tactical chamber. "No more waiting! No more silence! Enough!" he snapped, blood streaking down his temple. "They're not just after us, they're after you. And you fight like one of them. What are you?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. She pulled off her gloves. Thin lines ran along her wrists, faint ridges beneath the skin that caught the light unnaturally. Her hands trembled. Finally, her voice came raw even through the mask. "I was made by them. A project of the Dominion, a hybrid. Half human, half Krith." The words struck harder than any plasma bolt. She continued, each sentence like pulling a blade from her own chest. "I was grown in one of their vaults, designed to pass among your kind, to study you, to betray you. But they made a mistake. They gave me too much choice, too much humanity." Her hand lifted toward the mask. "I turned against them. I stole what I could, and I ran." Elias stared, his mind racing. He'd heard rumors of Dominion experiments, whispers of infiltration, of spies bred in vats, but never proof. Now proof stood in front of him, wearing a black steel mask, her voice breaking with shame. "They'll never stop," Sarah said. "Not while I breathe. To them, I'm property that escaped. And to you," her hand hovered at her mask, "if you saw my face, you wouldn't follow me into battle again. That's why I hide. That's why I told you. You'd stop protecting me." The chamber was silent, save for the hum of damaged systems. Elias's heart pounded. He wanted to deny it, to demand she was lying, but the pieces fit too neatly. Her impossible reflexes, her uncanny predictions, the Dominion's obsession with her capture. Slowly, Elias stepped closer. Mask or no mask, you've saved more human lives than anyone I know. You've bought us time we shouldn't have had. Whatever you were made for doesn't matter. What you chose, that's what defines you. Sarah turned away, her shoulders trembling. For the first time, he realized her silence wasn't coldness. It was fear. Fear that she would lose the only people she had chosen to protect. Before Elias could say more, alarm shrieked again. Another wave was inbound, larger than before. The Dominion wasn't retreating this time. Elias grabbed his rifle, heading for the bridge. But as he passed her, he stopped, lowering his voice. You're not one of them. You're one of us, and I'll prove it to the crew even if you won't. For the briefest second, her mask turned toward him. Not quite belief, not quite hope. Something fragile, caught between. Then she followed him back into the fire. The Dominion's next strike didn't come quietly. It came with fire across the sky. The human fleet had regrouped above Deiros III, a world whose fractured moon hung like a scar in orbit. The shattered chunks of rock drifted in unstable fields, jagged shards glinting with reflected starlight. It wasn't a battlefield anyone would have chosen. But it was the last choke point before Earth's heartland. Elias stood on the Iron Wind's bridge as sensors screamed. 70 Dominion warships warped in, blotting out the stars. Cruisers, carriers, drones in endless swarms, the largest force humanity had ever faced. Against them, barely 20 human ships remained, half of them limping wrecks. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. But Elias's crew stood ready, armor scarred, weapons prepped, fear burning into steel. And Sarah, still masked, still silent, brought up schematics of the Dominion mothership again. Her voice was steady, though Elias noticed the tremor at its edges. Their reactor, she said, pulling the hologram apart to expose its core. It's trichord. 3 stabilizers keep it balanced. If I can destabilize the quantum spine, the whole thing will collapse in on itself. But I'll need to be inside. The words dropped like a stone into the bridge. Engineer Rin swore under his breath. Inside? That's suicide. The damn thing's a labyrinth. Sarah didn't flinch. It's the only way. We can't fight them ship to ship. We have to cut out the heart. Elias's gut twisted. He'd known she'd say something like this. He also knew she was right. But the idea of sending her straight into the beast the Dominion had made her for, it burned. Then I'll go, Elias said. Every head snapped toward him. Even Sarah's mask turned sharply. You can't, she said almost too quickly. You don't understand their systems. You won't even make it to the core. Maybe not, Elias shot back. But I won't send you in alone to die. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice until only he could hear. If I die, they'll lose their obsession. If you die, humanity loses its symbol. The fleet rallies around you, Elias. They don't rally around me. The words hit harder than enemy fire. She wasn't wrong. The men and women out there would die for him because he was human, unmasked, theirs. Sarah still lived in shadow, but Elias wasn't one to leave allies behind. Then we go together, he said firmly. No debate. Sarah stared at him through the mask. Finally, she gave a single sharp nod. Together, then. The plan was madness. They stole a captured Dominion shuttle from the station wreckage, patched it enough to fly, and used it to slip through the mothership's patrols. The Krith had grown arrogant. Why guard against prey flying into the lion's mouth? Inside, the mothership was worse than Elias imagined. Its halls pulsed like veins, walls shifting with slow organic ripples. Machinery wasn't built here, it was grown. The air reeked of ozone and something chemical, sharp enough to sting his lungs. They moved quickly, rifles ready. Krith soldiers patrolled the corridors, bone-armored, insect-eyed. When they saw Sarah, they didn't fire immediately. They lunged with capture claws, snarling her name in their guttural tongue. It only made her fight harder. Elias covered her back, each plasma shot precise, while Sarah moved with terrifying speed. She knew the ship's rhythms, its hidden passages, even the code that forced doors open. Elias began to realize she wasn't just a soldier here. She was part of the mothership's design. They reached the reactor chamber. A cathedral of machinery stretched before them, the tri-core glowing like three newborn suns suspended in cages of shifting metal. Lightning arced between them, the unstable hum shaking Elias's bones. Sarah's voice was calm, but her hands shook as she set down her pack of charges. I can force an overload by destabilizing the spine. Once it starts, nothing can stop it. How long? Elias asked. Minutes, she said. Maybe less. They didn't have minutes. Alarms screamed across the chamber. Dozens of Dominion soldiers stormed in, weapons blazing. Plasma bolts tore across the catwalks, sparks cascading like fiery rain. Elias raised his rifle, firing until the barrel burned his hands. Sarah dove into the console, her masked face glowing in the reactor light as her fingers danced across alien keys. She worked like she was born for it. The Dominion surged closer. Elias fought like a man possessed, every shot fueled by rage. But he was only one man, and there were too many. Almost there, Sarah shouted. The catwalk exploded under Elias's feet. He caught the rail, hauled himself up, blood streaming down his arm. Through the smoke, he saw Sarah still working, still refusing to stop. She turned her head, mask cracked by shrapnel, sparks hissing across its surface. For a heartbeat, Elias saw violet light flickering beneath. You can't save me if this works, she said. Her voice, stripped of modulation, trembled with something close to sorrow. When it blows, I'll be part of it. Elias staggered closer, firing blindly at the soldiers closing in. Then we find a way out, together. She smiled behind the cracked steel, a fragile human smile he wasn't supposed to see. Together, she whispered, and the reactor screamed. The reactor chamber tore itself apart. Lightning cracked across the tri-core, arcs of raw energy ripping through consoles. Dominion soldiers screamed as the overload spread, their armored bodies flung into firestorms of plasma. Elias dragged Sarah from the collapsing controls, her mask shattered further from the blast. The violet glow beneath flickered brighter now, no longer hidden. She tried to cover it, but he held her hands steady. "Forget the mask!" he shouted over the thunder. "We don't have time." Her eyes widened, luminescent, alien, beautiful, and terrible. The truth she had buried for years blazed out of her. "You asked me once why I wear it," she whispered, her voice unmodulated at last, soft, aching, filled with weight. "Because if you saw me, you'd stop protecting me. And I—" Her words broke as the chamber groaned, metal splitting. "I needed you to keep fighting." Elias didn't look away, didn't flinch. "Sarah, I was never protecting you. We were protecting each other." The chamber shook violently. The overload had seconds left. Sarah's hand hovered at his cheek, hesitant, almost afraid of his reaction. "You're not afraid of me?" Elias grinned through blood and smoke. "Afraid? You've been saving my ass since we met. Human or not, I don't care." Tears shimmered in her violet eyes, something the Dominion had never intended their weapon to feel. Then the core shrieked, collapsing inward like a black star. They ran. Catwalks disintegrated behind them, molten beams crashing down. The shuttle bay was chaos, Dominion soldiers fleeing, their own ship pulling apart under the overload. Elias fired and sprinted, pulling Sarah through smoke and flame. The stolen shuttle sat wrecked, its hull scorched. "No way out! Escape pods!" Sarah gasped, pointing toward a side corridor. They barreled down it, explosions chasing them, until the corridor itself folded inward, sealing the path. They were trapped. Elias pressed Sarah against the wall, shielding her as debris rained down. His chest burned, lungs raw. There was no way to outrun the destruction. No miracle shuttle. But then Sarah's hand brushed the cracked mask hanging from her face. She pulled it off fully, tossing it aside. For the first time, Elias saw her as she was, half human, half Dominion creation. Features sculpted for beauty, but edged with alien sharpness. Her skin glowed faintly, veins humming with reactor-born energy. She wasn't just part of the mothership. She was a fragment of its living core, her eyes locked with his. "I can hold it back. Just long enough for you to get out." "No!" Elias snarled. "Don't you dare! It's the only way," she insisted, gripping his armor. "I was built to serve them, Elias, but I choose this. I choose you. Don't let my existence end as their weapon. Let it end saving what matters." The words cut him deeper than any wound. He wanted to argue, wanted to drag her out, fight the universe itself if he had to. But the core's implosion thundered closer, tearing through bulkheads like a tidal wave. Sarah leaned in, pressed her forehead to his. "Liv, tell them I fought with you. Tell them the mask wasn't who I was." Her lips brushed his ear, a whisper drowned by fire. "Together, always." And then she shoved him toward the last functioning drop pod. Elias roared her name, fighting, clawing against her strength. But the hatch sealed before he could stop it. Through the viewport, he saw her standing amid the storm, arms outstretched as violet light consumed her. She wasn't cowering. She wasn't afraid. She was defiant, radiant, human in the only way that mattered. The pod fired just as the mothership imploded. From orbit, the human fleet saw it. A sun igniting where the Dominion's flagship had been, tearing their war formation apart. Enemy ships scattered, leaderless, crippled. Humanity surged forward, turning despair into fury. Elias's pod slammed into the Iron Wind's hangar, smoke and fire still clinging to him as he stumbled out. His crew swarmed him, cheering, crying, some kneeling as if he had dragged victory back with his bare hands. But Elias didn't cheer. His chest felt hollow. His eyes burned with something heavier than loss. In the silence of his quarters later, he placed Sarah's broken mask on the table. The steel was cracked, scorched, but still intact enough to recognize. His reflection stared back at him from its ruined surface. He whispered into the empty room, voice breaking. "I never would have stopped protecting you." Not ever. Outside, humanity celebrated the impossible victory. The Dominion was broken, retreating into chaos. A new legend was born. But Elias knew the truth. Victory had not come from weapons or ships. It had come from a woman who dared to tear off her mask and choose her own ending, and that truth would outlive them all.